Welcome everybody. Start you on the touchpad. Welcome everybody. Welcome to the session Nifty Networking through LinkedIn. My name is Matt Purdy and I'm part of the Career Services team at UniSA here. We would like to acknowledge the land that we work, live and walk on today is the traditional lands of the Kaurna people and respect their spiritual relationship with their country. Given our regional campuses, the UniSA also respects the Boandik, Warangala, Wirangu and Nauru people's spiritual relationship with their country. We recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationships with the land, and acknowledge that they are of continuing importance to those living today. We acknowledge the diversity of Aboriginal peoples past, present and future. This event is part of the October Careers Week, Careers of the Future week-long events, which is facilitated by UniSA Career Services. These events cover a whole range of different topics, including innovation, self-awareness, leadership, cross-cultural communication, startups, and self-employment. We are delighted that you've attended today, and we know that you'll greatly benefit from the content that's going to be presented by Sue in a moment. We would love for you to also attend the future events throughout the rest of this week as well, and we would encourage you to visit Career Hub to find out about those in more detail and to look into any of those that you think may be of interest to you. Just need to make you aware as well today that we are streaming this event live online, and it is being recorded as well. As such, we would like to welcome those that are actually not in the room here as well, but are watching online, specifically those that are at our Whyalla and Mount Gambier campuses who have also taken the time to be watching in live today. So it's great to have you all as part of this event as well. Please be mindful that if for whatever reason you request that your LinkedIn profile is viewed on screen today, which probably won't occur in the nature of this presentation, but the careers team will just have to catch up with you one-on-one really briefly afterwards just to get some information from you. Just so you're aware too, there will be an evaluation form that will be provided to those that are here in the room as well, so you can give us any feedback on this event too. So that will be emailed to you next week. Without any further ado, I would like to welcome today's presenter, Sue Ellson, who is our LinkedIn guru. She's presented with us here a number of times at the university with the careers team, and we're delighted to have her presenting to you again today. So let's make Sue welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt, and it's a really great privilege to be here, both in person and live online. And I really appreciate the fact you've turned up, because I always find that the people who turn up are the most proactive, the ones most likely to take action, and the ones most likely to succeed. And the other benefit of you turning up is you get to ask the questions you want throughout the presentation. I'm quite happy to handle interruptions and different questions throughout the presentation, so if you feel compelled to ask something, please do so at any time during the presentation. I much prefer it to be interactive. I was here at the University of South Australia yesterday in the forum in the Jeffrey Smart building because I ran a session for career development practitioners, so that's people like Matt who are on careers teams and helping you find work after university. And you may also be interested to know that I was born and grew up in Adelaide and completed my entire Bachelor of Business and Administrative Management from the University of South Australia by correspondence, when there were fax machines, not just email. And so, you know, I was quite often at the 7-Eleven store at 11:59 trying to fax through my assignment. And yeah, I'm actually an alumni, so here's proof that you get an education, you can move on, and they can even invite you back. And so this is the third time I've spoken to the University of South Australia, and it's a great privilege, and I'm very proud alumni of the university. So, by way of background, I joined LinkedIn on the 21st of December 2003. So I'm member number 77,832 in the world on LinkedIn. And I've been consulting on the topic of LinkedIn since 2008. And in February this year, I published my first book, 120 Ways to Achieve Your Purpose with LinkedIn, which is all of that 8 years of consulting, advising, training experience put into one book. And Tim has been handing out a little flyer. If you don't have one, please see Tim. And if you put your name and email address on it, you can win a copy of the book worth $40 today. So encourage you to do that before I leave the building. And I do need to leave the building fairly quickly because I now live in Melbourne, which is where I've lived since 1994. And that's what prompted me to set up Newcomers Network, which is an online resource for people who've moved. And in 2012, I set up Camberwell Network. I've published the 3 books this year, I teach, I do a whole bunch of different things, and I really love the variety of work that I do. And Matt asked me to talk about careers of the future, and I thought, well, I have no idea what's going to happen with careers of the future, apart from the fact that you're going to have to constantly learn. One of the great benefits of my education was the fact that it's encouraged me to be a lifelong learner. In fact, I love learning so much, I call myself a learning junkie. And I go to between 1 and 4 events per week, both live and online, to keep myself up to date. So I'm 51 and I'm still learning, and I plan to be learning for a lot longer yet. But my daughter thinks I don't know anything. She's 21, and what she said to me, Mum, you don't even know how to zoom in and zoom out on a screen. Well, let me tell you, I now know how to do that. It's Control Plus or Control Minus or Command if I'm using a Mac. So good news for me. I'm now technically literate in many respects because I can do that. But anyway, happy to answer any questions. My second book is about attracting the right career or business, and the third one's about marketing your business hyper-locally. I'm thinking about writing my next book, 120 Ways to be a Bad Lover, because my kids are always complaining about the terrible things I've done. So anyway, that's okay. We'll move on. So you're all here to learn a little bit about LinkedIn, and we're going to have technological issues, I think. No, I don't want to go there. That. And LinkedIn is a tool to help you, in my view, find opportunities, a mentor, a coach, a professional advisor, a research colleague, or a decision maker related to your purpose. So this is not about me saying this is how you do LinkedIn and you should all do it the same. I'm trying to give you the tools and techniques that you can use for your particular purpose. And what you're going to learn in this session is how to attract the best networking opportunities, how to source the best networking opportunities, utilise various tools within LinkedIn, be able to approach people. A lot of people feel very nervous about contacting people, but you can do it. How to maintain your relationships over time, stand out amongst the competition and have your questions answered. Because that's what was on the registration form. So I'm making sure I'm covering that, and I'll also cover quite a few other bits and pieces. So what you will come away with is specific ideas on how to optimise your LinkedIn profile, techniques you can use to manage your network and find the best contacts, manage your connections, sort and follow them up over time, and the courage to give it a go and excel in the future. You can perhaps win the book, and if you give me your email address, I'll send you the slides as well as the top 20 tips on LinkedIn, and I'll email those through to you. And one of the other important things is this is, although you're part of university and you've paid for your education, there's a lot of effort goes into organising these types of events. So I really encourage you to say thanks to Tim and Matt and Rick and whoever's helped you get here, because this has given you an opportunity to learn something new and useful for your purpose. So what is LinkedIn? How many of you have got a LinkedIn profile already? This is looking pretty good. Okay, so about 50%. It's really interesting that one of the fastest growing demographics on LinkedIn is students. And I would say of those people who have a LinkedIn profile, probably 1% have done it well. So there's a lot you can learn about how to maximise LinkedIn. And LinkedIn started off as a network for professionals, and it's moved into a publishing platform, and the next incarnation is going to be a business-to-business platform. And you may have heard also that Microsoft purchased LinkedIn earlier this year, one of the biggest corporate acquisitions in history, and it could change in the future, but I can't see it disappearing anytime soon because it keeps acquiring new facilities, new functions. So unlike MySpace, that was the same and then people got sick of it, and more like Facebook, which changes every 5 minutes, no sooner do you get used to the Facebook screen, it changes again. LinkedIn very much does that as well. And they use a number of techniques to try and create more engagement and for you to spend longer on LinkedIn. So the more time you spend on there, then hopefully the more things you buy or you'll interact with and so on and give better value. So they've got 450 or more million members across the world and over 8 million in Australia. Now, compared to Facebook, Facebook's got about 14 million Australians and Twitter is about 4 million. Instagram has gone over Twitter, so there are nearly 5 million people on Instagram, which is also owned by Facebook. Don't know what the numbers are for Snapchat, but these numbers continue to change. But LinkedIn is number 2 in the states of social media. And you can be quite sure that if somebody Googles your name, and it's a slightly unusual name, your LinkedIn profile is going to come up. You can use it for your own profile, you can use it to develop your network, and I actually say to people there is no such thing as job security. The value is in your network. The bigger network you have that you develop over time, the more chance you have of being able to remain employed. Because your network is going to give you referrals, and up to 85% of business is done by referrals, and the best employees are the ones who've been referred into the business by somebody else who already works there. So really important for your network. It's also important for business, and it's highly search engine optimized, both for your name, but also keywords. So if you do certain searches, on Google, my LinkedIn profile will come up, and I can show you that if we get some time a bit later, and there's a link there for some more information. So I figured that the thing that you would most want to do to make a difference to, what happens after today is understand how you can stand out from everybody else who's on LinkedIn. And what you really need to understand, if you don't already, is that it is just a dumb, stupid database. That's all it is, a database of a huge amount of information. And if you want to stand out on that database, you've got to put the information into the database. If the information's not there, people are not going to be able to find you. But what you also need to think about is algorithms. So just as there are algorithms that produce Google search results and algorithms that determine what you see on Facebook, there are also algorithms that are on LinkedIn. And that will determine whether your LinkedIn profile comes up in a recruiter or a decision maker's search or not. And so you need to be aware of algorithms and how they may change over time. So when I first started publishing articles on LinkedIn, every time I wrote a new article, it would let every one of my connections know that I'd written it. Now, because everybody started writing articles, they changed the algorithm and they stopped sending out those notifications. So I can write the greatest, best article ever, and only maybe 3% of the people who I'm connected to will even see it. So I've got to do other things to promote my content. You also need to think about the signals that you send. So 15, 20 years ago when we talked about marketing, we classified people in terms of demographics. So I'm a 51-year-old female who lives in Canterbury, Melbourne, and I fit in a particular box, a particular demographic. But now what happens is, based on my behaviour online, I'm constantly sending signals out to Google, to LinkedIn, to everywhere, and that's going to determine what information comes back into me. So if you create your LinkedIn profile and do nothing ever after, obviously nothing ever is going to happen because you're not sending out those signals. But if you send out signals like, I'm always interested in economics and I follow economics thought leaders and I like, comment and share economics articles, then obviously you're something to do with economics, and that's a signal that you're sending out. And you also need to remember that with online content, it's only ever a version number. So from 5 years from now, your LinkedIn profile is going to look very different. So you need to remember it's not just you write it, you're finished and it's done. It's always another version thereof. And so if you understand these principles, you can determine which database you should be on, which algorithms you need to be aware of, what you need to do to optimize it for yourself. So for example, if you're a creative person, you might find that there's another online platform that you should have a profile on as well as LinkedIn, because that's where your target audience meets and you need to be known in that particular field as well. So bear that in mind. LinkedIn's great. I'm not paid by LinkedIn, by the way. I'm not here to sell you anything from LinkedIn. Completely independent of them. In fact, I still have the free account, so I don't even pay for premium membership. So yeah, but think about that in terms of the bigger picture of where you want to go with your career. You also need to be strategic, and one of the most important techniques in finding the right job opportunity is following up with people. And so many people think, I'll just do this great technique and that'll work. And I'll go to a networking event and I'll meet the CEO and they'll give me a job. That's not how it works. You've got to follow up with that person that you met at the networking event and contact them and meet with them and send them information and do all those sorts of things. So if you come along today and do nothing afterwards, it's going to be a waste of an hour and a half. You've actually got to take some action and follow up afterwards. And another thing that I talk more about in my third book is this trend towards recommendations and reviews. So most of us book our travel and accommodation online now, and what do? We look for reviews and we determine whether we're going to stay in some hotel or travel with some airline based on its reviews. So you need to think about, where can I get some reviews, or where can I get some recommendations that are not what I said to somebody, but what somebody else said about me. So that way you can be, people can do their due diligence on you based on what they've read from what other people have written. Because believe it or not, I could say that Matt's the greatest careers person at the university, but unless you found that out for yourself, you wouldn't necessarily believe me. So So recommendations and reviews is really starting to become more important. And you also need to keep learning and take action. My son, when he was 13, he was underage, because you have to be 14 years and 8 months to get a job in Australia, and he didn't have a resume either. But he found phone numbers and he just rang people until someone gave him a job. And you know, I often tell this story because he just keeps taking action until he gets what he wants. So it's not necessarily, you know, he had to have a perfect LinkedIn profile first, but he just did whatever it took to get a job in the area he wanted. And that was in aged care. He got into working in aged care at the age of 13. And also, if you forget everything you learned today, you can always look at my website, sueellson.com, and there's heaps of articles under publications and heaps of my previously recorded presentations. Some of those are for students, some of those are for graduates, some of them for freelancers, contractors, businesses, all sorts of stuff. So please feel free to share my website with anybody who may find it helpful. Okay. So before you start, or before I work with any of my individual clients on helping them with their LinkedIn profile, I do these things. I check how many views they've had in the last 90 days. I save their profile to PDF so that if they want to go back to what their profile looked like previously, we have a copy of it. And I export all their LinkedIn connections and I turn notify their network to know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to do these things. It's very straightforward. So from the home page in the middle of the screen, it will click here and it says how many views I had in the last 90 days. Can anybody beat that? No? Oh, no. I must know something. So anyway, there's a guy here in Adelaide and he gets 2,000 views per 90 days, but he gets no work out of it. Okay, so it's not just about the number of views, but obviously if you're getting 100 or more views per 90 days, then it's not just your friends, family and stalkers at parties who are finding the details of your LinkedIn profile, okay? So get it to more than 100 and then you know that your profile's working for you. And you are allowed to laugh at my bad jokes if you like. And further down is my favourite activity, and I call this reverse stalking. So I check out who has been looking at my profile. So this guy was at the workshop yesterday. I don't know who this one is. He's a connection of mine. Maybe he saw me the last time I came to Adelaide. Tony was the one who organised the event yesterday, and this person is somebody who looked at my profile anonymously. And this is my #1 favourite activity on LinkedIn because it tells me whether my profile is actually working for me or not. And then what I can do if I want to is I can go stalking other people, and I can do it anonymously if I wish, which I will do on behalf of my clients by going into that privacy and settings up the top and then choosing privacy and changing my profile viewing options to anonymous. And then I can go and look at somebody else's profile. So if you've got an interview tomorrow and you want to check out who's interviewing you, you don't want them to know that you've looked at their profile, you can make yourself anonymous and then check it out.
But you need to pay for that?
No.
Because there are two versions of LinkedIn. You need one for free and another you need to pay.
That's right. So what I do is I turn this on an as-needs basis. So if I decide I know your name and I want to check you out immediately, I'll go anonymous, check you out, and then come back and turn myself back on. And that way I can still see the last 5 people who've looked at my LinkedIn profile. What you could do with the premium account is you could have it always anonymous, and then you would still see all the people who are looking at you. But don't you want people to know that you looked at them? Because then there's a 30% chance they will then look at you. So I actually like people knowing that I've looked at their profile. Okay? Whilst we're here, I'll just mention a couple of other things. This is another setting, who can see your connections. I let everybody know who I'm connected to because that helps people verify, who I am. So if you already know Matt and you look at my profile, you think, oh, well, she must be all right. She already knows Matt. That's okay. But if I was a fancy CEO or in sales, I would choose only you there instead. And another one that I get everybody to change is this one. So the last thing, if you're an engineering student and I'm looking for an engineer, the last thing I want to do is promote another engineer at the same time, that your profile's being looked at. So I suggest everybody turn that particular setting to no. So that means that if somebody looks at your profile, they won't see other similar profiles to you on the same screen. So I suggest everybody turn that one to no. You may also like to choose notify your connections when you're in the news. That just lets people know that you've got some extra PR for something. So you can turn that one to yes. So the first thing, as I said, when I'm working with somebody, is I get them to write down their number of views for the last 90 days. And the reason I get them to write that down is that's a real-time statistic. If I try and, wake up tomorrow and say, how many views was I getting yesterday, I won't know the number. It's only a live stat. Now, the second thing I do is I go to the person's profile, and on this little box here, I can choose Save to PDF. But before I do that, you'll see that I'm using Google Chrome, and I change the Google Chrome settings. So I go into Advanced, and I change it to here, Ask where to save each file before downloading. Close that tab. And now when I choose Save to PDF, the computer crashes. We'll try again, we've lost internet. Okay, technical man, will my computer hook up to the system? Looks like it wants to use Internet Explorer. Anyway, profile. Choose Save to PDF. Right, so when I save it with today's date back to front, so 16/10/18, and I put a dash between words because I also teach how to create websites, and you want to search engine optimize all your file names, so you just get into the habit of always putting dashes between words. And then I also put LinkedIn there, and I save it in a relevant spot on the computer. We'll just put it on the desktop for now. And that means that you can always go back and say, it will sort them all in date order, and you can go back to the version that you had on that particular date. So that's just a handy little thing. The good news is you can also save anybody else's profile to PDF. So if you find this fantastic profile in the US of some other person who's got a similar background to you, you can choose Save to PDF, print it out, borrow a few ideas, and do that as well. And even keep record of some people that you knew previously by doing that. So anybody's profile, you can do that. The third thing I do is get the person to export their connections. So once you click connections, you click on the little cog over here. Right. And you choose export LinkedIn connections. And regardless of whether you've got a PC or a Mac, you choose that CSV file. And you enter the security code, and then you'll be able to open that file in Excel. And that file will give you a list of all of your connections, their first name, last name, email address, their current job title, and their current company. So if you're a naughty person on LinkedIn, they will delete your profile. So, that way you've at least got a backup of all your connections. But also in the unlikely event that LinkedIn crashes overnight, then obviously you'll be able to reinstate your profile because you've got a record of all the people you're connected to, as well as a saved copy of your profile. So that's what I recommend to everybody. The other thing I do before I work with a client is I go to their profile, and on the right-hand side of the screen, I say notify your network, and I turn that to no, because if you're making lots of changes to your LinkedIn profile, you don't want people knowing change the jobs when all you did was change the job titles. So I suggest that you change that as well. Any questions on any of that?
So just quickly, Sue, if,
Yeah.
if you were to export all that information, and let's say something did happen in your profile, crashed or whatever, is it easy enough to just export it back or import it back in?
No, unfortunately it's not.
So you have to manually configure it again?
Yes, you have to manually put all the data in, and also you can only invite 10 people by email at a time, and you can only do a maximum of 100 invitations per day. So with me, with 9,000 connections, it's going to take a jolly long time to reinstate my profile, and I also have to wait for each person to re-accept all of my requests. So please don't be naughty on LinkedIn, because it's a real hassle to try and recreate it. And I'll tell you some things that are naughty to do in a minute. Okay, so as I said before, we changed the privacy settings, who can see your connections, turn off viewers of this profile, make yourself anonymous, and notify connections when in the news. I've just shown you how to do those as well. Okay, so the next thing is, do you want to be constantly chasing people for jobs, or do you want the jobs to come to you? And I reckon it's a lot better if the jobs can come to you. And so that's what I've done over time, is I've created a digital asset, and so all of my content online attracts the right clients to me, and my mobile phone rings and they're normally booking for an appointment. So it works really, really well for me to do that. So I prefer pull strategies, but I also use some push strategies depending on what I need to do. So some of the pull strategies for attracting are, increasing the number of my connections, search engine optimizing my profile, publishing updates and articles, liking, commenting, and sharing relevant things. But if you want to push yourself out, because you've just finished uni and you want to start doing things, you can search and contact people, reverse stalk and contact those people, contribute to groups and contact them, or follow companies and contact those. So you can see every single time you've got to actually contact people. And I work with a lot of introverts and they don't like doing that. So, that's why a lot of the time I like the pull strategies instead. So if we look at the pull in a little bit more detail, one of the strategies you should all look at doing is increasing the number of your connections, because the more people you're connected to, the more likely you are to appear in somebody else's search results. So this is the most popular question I get asked all the time: should I connect to somebody who asked to connect with me? And provided they don't look like, they're a bad person, I pretty much say yes all the time, because the more first or second level connections I have, the more likely I will appear in somebody doing a search. So I say yes, accept as many connections as you can. And I also search engine optimize my profile. So because I started networking and publishing information online in 2001, was my first website, I know that I've got to put my keywords in particular locations. And on LinkedIn, it has to be in the headline, which is directly underneath your name. It also should be, let's go back, in your current job title, your past job title, in your education section, your summary section, your experience. So they're the priority order as well of where the most important spot to put your keywords is. So if you put your, second level keywords, not so important, in your headline, you're really wasting that space. You should really put your top keywords in that space. And you need to think about the keywords that are going to be most relevant for the person who wants to hire you. So an example that I refer to all the time is I came to Adelaide a few years ago and I spoke at a conference, and most of the people in the room were career people helping you with your career. And they're all members of the association called the Career Development Association of Australia. So I logged into LinkedIn, I'm connected to lots of these people, and I did a search for Career Counsellor Adelaide, because that was the term I knew for somebody who does career counselling. And would you believe not one of those people in the room turned up in my search results at that time, because they called themselves career development practitioners, but I was looking for career counsellor. So you really have to think, if you want a particular job, you've got to think about the words that the people who are looking for you would type in, not the words you want to call yourself. You could say, I'm an expert engineer in all aspects of civil engineering, blah, blah. There's only a couple of keywords in there. But if you said civil engineering specialising in concrete construction of bridges and blah, 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 you know, there's a lot more keywords in that headline. And then in the job titles, summary, experience, and so on. You can also publish articles and updates, and you know, you can include hashtags, which are just subjects, and you can let people know that you know you were quoting them by putting the @ symbol and their name will come up, and put headings in there, markup, which is things like bold, italics, quote marks, dot points, that sort of thing, links to other websites, interlinks to other content you've written, images, videos, put calls to actions, share it elsewhere, all this sort of stuff. So you can write one article, but then you can share it around to lots of other places and get better value out of it. And what a lot of organisations are now doing is they're saying, right, the CEO has just published this fantastic article on his or her LinkedIn profile. We'd like you as the employee to like, comment and share it through your network. And that makes the marketing and the content go far and wide. So if you are strategic about that, people will notice you that you're sharing other people's information, and if it's relevant, you know, fantastic. So you can, as I said, like, comment and share. You'll get the most brownie points and the most recognition if you share it. But before you share it, please read the article, watch the video, you know, check everything out, because sometimes there might be something terrible at the end. You don't want to share that. But yeah, definitely consider liking, commenting and sharing as it suits. So alternatively, you can try the push technique. So if you're a bit more of an extrovert and you're happy to contact people, you can do an advanced search and save your searches and constantly be looking for the types of people who might want to employ you. And you can choose the level of connections, but you've got to remember that you can only do 50 searches a month before they want money out of you. So, you know, be strategic about how you do those searches. You can reverse stalk. So there's a lady in Melbourne who's an image stylist, and anybody who looks at her LinkedIn profile, she then goes and says, oh, hi, thanks for visiting my profile. How can I help? And so that's really led to some work for her. So you can do that. And you can contribute to groups. I don't anymore because it's just too time consuming, and I find a lot of groups are just full of sales and spam messages. But you know, some groups are really worthwhile, particularly internationally, professionally run groups can be really helpful. And but also, don't just go there to self-promote. Oh, I just finished my degree, give me a job. You know, that's not going to go down too well. And also follow companies. So I can tell you for a fact that if you want to work in banking and you follow the National Australia Bank and they're looking for somebody, you know, with banking background, then you're much more likely to be contacted because you're already following the National Australia Bank. So if you've got particular organisations you'd really like to work for, see if they've got a LinkedIn profile and choose follow. And then periodically look at their company page and see what they've written and say like, comment and share, you know, relevant content. And then the HR manager or the social media person will say, my goodness, this person's always liking, commenting and sharing, you know. And there was this one guy I heard about, he just kept visiting the profile of the CEO, you know, like every week, you know, like Thursday 9 o'clock, time to visit the CEO, time to visit the CEO. And guess what? The CEO rang him one day and said, would you like to work here? He said, yes, please. You know, so please, you know, feel free to do that. But try and do something that adds some value when you do that. Now, normally people start off with the do's before they start with the don'ts, but I want to end on a positive note, not a negative note. So I'm going to start off with, please do not do the following things. So there was a bunch of engineering students who wanted to get a job in engineering, and they thought if they all endorsed each other for engineering, they'd have a better chance of getting a job. Well, I can tell you in HR, if we saw that you were a recent graduate and if all these people endorsed you for engineering when you never worked in it, we would just look at that and say, that looks stupid. So don't bother falsely endorsing people. There's no value in that. And please do not use sales scripts. There's some LinkedIn advisors who say, you know, as soon as you connect with someone, send them this message and then send them that message, and none of it's personalised. And you just look like an idiot if you follow that rote kind of formula. So don't use sales scripts. Personalise everything. You can get some ideas, but don't just bombard people with this automatic sequence. And I'll give you another example. I connected with this LinkedIn trainer in Brisbane. And, you know, I started getting all this ridiculous correspondence. He started endorsing me for all my skills. He never met me. And so obviously what happened is he thought, right, I'll get a virtual assistant and I'll get them to follow this sequence and then I'll get work. He didn't even ever look at my LinkedIn profile to say, well, I do LinkedIn training, the same thing as he does. So it was just ridiculous. So don't fall into that trap. Don't send out autoresponders every time you get a connection request. Thanks for connecting with me, blah, 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 you know. Personalise it if you're going to do that. Don't stalk all the time, like even that guy who stalked, you know, you don't want to be creepy. And I have actually had to work with a few clients who have been stalked, and I mean that seriously, you know, they're stalked by somebody who's not appropriate. There are privacy things that you can do, you can block certain people and so on. But yeah, please don't stalk without a message. And don't make inappropriate recommendations. So, you know, you might be working with somebody and they say, can you write me a recommendation? And you really hate working with them. You know, they're horrible to you, they're nasty to you, and you've got to write some sort of recommendation. And you might think, well, I better say that they're a great boss and fun to work with. Well, that's completely wrong. And if you've written that recommendation, it can be used in court. But what you might be able to say with them, I've worked with this person for 3 years and they've been fantastic at meeting deadlines and achieving budget, which is true perhaps, you know, it doesn't explain how they did it, but only put in a recommendation what you'd be happy to say in court. Also, don't self-promote. All of us know on social media, if it's somebody just waving the flag about how great they are all the time, it doesn't go down well, particularly in Australia. And don't only contact people when you say, oh, can you give me a job? Can you do this for me? Can you do that? You know, try and give something to the platform before you just automatically ask for something in return. So, here's some do tools, because they do work. If you make genuine endorsements, this is something that LinkedIn says, well done, you know, I've endorsed Rick and Matt and Tim and so on. So what it will do is it'll say, well done, Sue, you've endorsed a few people. We'll now put your name in front of some other people and get them to try and endorse you. If you meet people here today at this event, and I encourage you to speak to at least one other person before you leave the lecture theatre, why not connect to them and then follow up? And what you can do is you can set a reminder and you can do what you've promised and tag the connection. So I'll quickly show you that as well. Matt, are you happy for me to put your profile on the screen? So now that Matt and I are a first level connection, we have what's called a relationship. And here I can say that, well, I connected with him on the 23rd of September 2015, a year ago. I can write notes, I can set a reminder to contact him on a regular basis, and I can also give him a tag. And I've created some tags for my contacts, and I could technically classify him as a client. And I've also already classified him as a VIP, a very important person. And what I can do then is I can periodically search through my VIPs and say, oh right, it must be time for me to contact my VIPs again and just keep myself in the loop and familiar with them. So you can do all of that for all of your connections. It's not as good as a proper customer relationship management system, but the good news is Matt keeps his profile up to date on LinkedIn, so if he changes his contact details for any reason, I can still reach him through LinkedIn, where I couldn't necessarily do that if I'd added him to my in-house database. So there's quite a few things that you can do there in the relationships section. What you can also do, good grief, it's gone back to there. Is you can say thank you, especially to comments and shares. So every time I put something up on LinkedIn and somebody comments, I get a notification and I always respond, say thank you for commenting, thank you for sharing, I add more information to it and so on. So definitely do that and be proactive. So if you've decided, look, I'm not a very good writer, but I can find other really great articles and share them, then you might be what you call a curator. and that's another great way to be active on the program, on LinkedIn. You can also write recommendations, and this can be a key strategy. So if you think, look, there's somebody I've met or even that I've worked with, and they know everybody in the industry. So if you write a recommendation on their profile and somebody looks at their profile, guess who they're going to see? You. So you might see that as a really good strategy as well. But again, only truthful, put the keywords in. And also add value with every message, update or article. And try contacting people for information, not demands. Most Australians, and I can say this because I am an Australian, we are polite and friendly, but if you start asking us to marry you on the first date, we usually say no. Because we want to get to know you first before we say yes to something. But if you come to us asking for information and who you should speak to and all that kind of stuff, we're usually quite happy to help out. So, what else? The next thing is, if you've come up in someone's search results and they're now looking at your LinkedIn profile, they're not going to contact you unless your contact details are there. And if you only rely on the contact information box, which is only what they can see if they're connected to you, they're not going to be able to reach you. So I suggest that you include your contact information in the summary section as well as in the advice for contacting you section. And I suggest you put both your email address and your mobile phone number in that international format. So if they're on an Android phone, that will be a clickable link and they'll be able to just automatically SMS or call you. And if it's an email address, I suggest that you write it with the word @ instead of the real email address, because otherwise the spam robots will come in and you'll get loads of spam. So always write your email address with the word @ in it. If you don't feel comfortable about putting your mobile phone number online, please at least put your email address, because I can guarantee you most recruiters, if they find you, they're actually going to want to talk to you immediately. So what some people do is while they're in job search mode, they put their mobile phone number online, and then when they're not in job search mode, they take it off. The other thing to bear in mind is if you're worried about your mobile phone number, have any of you driven past a real estate sign and seen a mobile phone number and thought, I've got to ring it because I saw that mobile phone number? Most of us don't. We only ring if we actually want to do something with that person. So my mobile phone number, if you Google it, you'll find it on heaps of different websites. But most of the time, my phone rings with family and friends or people who want to book an appointment. And the reason it only rings on those occasions is because my message is really clear. Wherever I've written my message, this is what I do, this is how I can help, this is what I charge for. I also encourage you to add in text links. So you might say, but it's only plain text on the screen, but when it's, again, on a mobile device, that will be a clickable link. So put in URLs, because it's visible on mobiles. Include share this. So if you write an update, tell people, feel free to share it so that your content goes viral. And put some bling, which is like videos, images, PDF documents throughout your profile. And videos, if you've got your own videos, fine. If you don't feel comfortable putting videos on, look up some on YouTube, watch it to the end, and put those videos on your profile. And in your posts and updates, add an image. So that's an article I wrote on can unemployment be good for you. So I took that photo in Sydney of a bike race. Well, I'm bound to be able to use that in a blog article at some stage. And so then I just put the text over it, because people look at images and they're much more likely to read that text that's on the image than just, the picture and the words underneath. And include the call to action if you can do that as well. So if you spend all this time on LinkedIn, how are you going to be able to measure your return on investment? Well, you can see your stats will change, so that will definitely make a difference. You'll get more views, you'll get more followers, more connections. You might be, having run the group and see more group members in it. You can see the level of interaction you've got from your likes, comments and shares. And as I said before, shares will give you the most brownie points. You can get referrals, so are other people recommending you and suggesting that you be contacted for something. You can see how you rank against other people in your network by going to that link. You can also see your social selling index score by going to that link. You can see how many endorsements you've got. You can also see how many recommendations you've got. So I really encourage you to try and get at least 6 recommendations on your LinkedIn profile. Don't worry too much about endorsements. They're very low in the search criteria for making sure that you come up in search results. But again, at the end of the day, it's not about traffic, it's actually about getting conversions. And that's my cute alerts in a little meerkat, because it can be, so just to make it a bit fun for you. Okay, so then the best ongoing strategies. You obviously need to think very carefully about your purpose. And if you haven't really decided what you've done, I mean, I know you've already probably, been studying for ages and said, no, I'm not sure whether I really want to do this or not. There is an article on my website called How to Choose Your Next Job or Career. So if you want to do that, you're welcome to go through that process. But once you're clear on your purpose, think about who you want to see your LinkedIn profile, how you're going to get people who visit to convert and call you, and then think also about how much lifetime value you can get out of anything that you do. So I encourage all of you to register yourowname.com as a website address. I've purchased my kids' domain names and I tell them they've got to pay me a lot of money if they ever want them back. But the reason I've done that is, and the sooner you do this the better, is if you don't ever publish any content on there for another 5 years, when you do, it will be classified as a 5-year-old website. And the benefit of creating your own website is that you can control any of the content that goes on there. If you just like, comment or share an update on LinkedIn, it ends up in the news feed and tomorrow nobody may see it. But if you publish something on your own website, that's going to be there for as long as you choose to leave it on there. And that gives you lifetime value. But if we think about the algorithms and you only ever published on your website, you didn't share it, it didn't go viral, it wasn't current, then you don't get any dynamic value. So Google is going to try and say, well, this person published 24 articles in the last year of their university degree, and then they did nothing for 3 years. There's no relevance to this content because nothing's been happening, during that time. So you need to do something that just keeps the dynamic wheel ticking over, but also think about what's going to give you lifetime value. So that's why I made the choice about 2 years ago not to worry about participating in groups. I actually get much more value out of writing articles on LinkedIn and having it sitting there for a long time. And I'll give you an example of this. I wrote an article on professional membership of LinkedIn in 2014. So, and please feel free to try this at home, so you know that I'm not giving the idea. Now, that is an article I wrote, which is #1, page 1 of Google. And it's above the LinkedIn blog, Social Media Examiner in 2015, Forbes, the Dummies books, even a professional association website. And the reason it's performed so well is I've search engine optimized that article and I've also updated it. But what Google has discovered is that people obviously click on that and they read it because they spend a reasonable amount of time. Google's tracking that as well. That's part of their search algorithm. So if people click on this and spend time on it, Google says, well, that must still be relevant content, and it keeps it at #1, page 1 of Google. And I'm not sure whether it'll show you my statistics, but you tell me where else I could write something and get 18,377 views. That's pretty good results. Now, I've written other content, it hasn't performed as well as that particular one, but that one has performed really well. So that's an example of creating lifetime value out of one article that I wrote and that I just update every so often. And also what I encourage you to do is build your digital asset value. So one of the clients I was working for, they purchased a franchise with 170 locations across Australia. And because it was a new franchise, they spent $30,000 a year on Google AdWords. Now, if you've done any accounting subjects, you'll know that an expense usually goes up And it just gets more and more each year. But an asset is designed to generate revenue for you. So if you're building a digital asset and getting more of your content published online, then you're much more likely to reap a benefit from that. So what I suggested to that particular franchise is they got all their franchise owners to start publishing content, because that would build their digital asset and that would help them attract business rather than having to keep paying for Google ads. Because every time somebody clicked on a Google ad, it was going to cost them more money. So, that was just going to be an expense that's going to keep going up. And also you've got to pick what's going to work for you. In some industries, as I said, you might be better off spending more of your time on a platform that is industry specific. But I would still recommend you to have a LinkedIn profile. A number of people have approached me to join other professional networks, and I've chosen not to, because none of them have the size and the power of LinkedIn. And I don't want to just have to maintain another profile. But if something did come up that I perceived to be worthwhile, then I would join that as well. So, approaching people. As I said, a lot of people find this a little bit tricky. So here's what I suggest. First of all, you visit the person's profile and make sure that you read and understand a little bit about them. So when I was working with one client, he wanted to get into the property market and in architecture, I think, project manager in the architecture industry. And we kept looking for people's profiles until we found someone in the industry who did project management and who did architecture and was willing to help. And we could tell that because this particular person was on other committees and represented the association, and he did all this other stuff. So we thought, this person is well worth contacting. If we'd just seen the person's profile and they just spent their entire career in one company and never did anything else, I wouldn't bother contacting that person. That person's not likely to want to be approached. So then I encouraged my clients to introduce themselves and saying, look, I found your details on LinkedIn. I noticed that you've been supporting the industry for many years. You've got a background in project management and architecture. And what I'd really like to know is what sorts of jobs are available in that industry in Adelaide or wherever you choose to be living or working. And, who should I speak to? What sort of information should I know about? Are there any other courses or programs that I should participate in, whatever? And then after you've asked all your questions that hopefully you've written down before you contacted them, you say, is there anything else you can suggest? Because quite often you might think you've got all the questions, but they might be able to say, you should really consider this as well. And then you say, is there anybody else you should contact? Because I say it's not what you know, it's not who you know, it's who refers you. So if I speak to Matt and Matt refers me to Tim, the relationship that Tim has with Matt is what the relationship I'll have when I contact Tim, because Matt referred me. So it's the same type of thing. So try and get a referral, then thank them for their time and assistance. And then after I've spoken to Tim, what I should do then is go back to Matt and say, thanks again, Matt, for referring me to Tim. He's suggested that we do this, and this is what happened. Because there's way too many people who do not say thank you. And I guarantee you there's lots of research that shows that employees will work better if they're thanked, managers will get better responses, you'll get better success if you just say thank you. And if you can be specific, thanks Matt for introducing me to Tim. Tim told me about this, this and this, and he answered my questions on that, that and that, and it was fantastic. It's much better than, oh, I spoke to Tim for, an hour, it was terrific. That doesn't tell Matt anything about what happened. And then also, because as I said, your network is what your net worth is, you need to be able to maintain your relationships. So, as I said, meet at least one other person here and connect with them immediately, and then set yourself a follow-up thing to do, within a week usually, and tag them into a category, add some notes, and then if you're working for an organisation, you may be required not to just connect with them personally on LinkedIn, but to add them to the database of the organisation. So that's quite often what you need to do. Now there is a little browser plugin that if you have it on Google Chrome, it will add the person's LinkedIn details into Salesforce, which is a well-known CRM, but a lot of the time you have to actually do this manually. So, Have I told you everything I promised I would tell you? Do you have some more ideas on how to attract and source the best networking opportunities, I hope? And utilise various tools, approach people, maintain your relationships and stand out. So now is the time to also see what questions you have, and I'm more than happy to show you different examples of things that look really good on LinkedIn, and I can even show you a few ideas from my own profile. As I said, this is part of October, Matt said, this is part of the Careers Week at the University of South Australia. Definitely encourage you to consider other events. And as you came in, if you got your little flyer, now's the time to put your details on the bottom, and I'll pass the bowl around, and if you put it in, you can win a copy of the book. And who's going to be the bravest? You don't have to give me the whole slip, just the bottom bit. Who's the person who's going to be bravest and ask the first question? Yes?
I'm a final year student at uni,
Yep.
and some of us co-students have recommended each other on LinkedIn.
Yep.
Is that a good thing to do?
Absolutely. Yeah, fantastic idea to connect with all your friends from uni. It's also a really good idea to speak to various lecturers and tutors who've been particularly helpful to you and give them an update on what you plan to do in the future. Now, I'll give you a couple of different examples. The last subject I did as part of my degree was a research project that Lorraine Spears supervised. Would you believe that when I spoke here in April, she came down here to the lecture theatre to say hello to me and speak to me, and I finished my degree in 1999. Now, that's fantastic. But the other benefit of maintaining a loose type of professional relationship with the key people who've been part of your academic success is quite often industry people will contact lecturers and say, can you give me the name of your best and brightest engineering student or whatever? We've got some job openings coming up. So, it's never too late to do that. Some university lecturers will also be willing to write a recommendation on your LinkedIn profile. Now, please don't get angry if they don't want to do that, but if they're willing to do that, that can be worth asking a question for too. So a number of things, but yeah, absolutely connect to as many people as you can, and decide if you'd like to follow up or organise other things afterwards as well. Next question.
Have you got any tips or do's or don'ts about the actual profile picture or the type of profile picture?
Absolutely, I've got heaps of tips on that. Okay, so first of all, if you want to read about it, if you go to my profile, and you'll see here that I've written lots of articles, so it only shows the last 3, but if you choose see more, you'll see an article on here which has got a whole lot of photographs on it, this one, and that's the tips for your photo, okay? But just to give you a bit of a clue, now mine's a pretty vanilla photo because I do lots of different things, so I'm not just one thing. So the key aspects of my photograph are I'm wearing dark coloured clothing so that contrasts very well with a white background. So it means it's very easy to see my face. My eyes are near the 1/3 line. Every photograph should really focus on the eyes because that's how we connect with people, is through the eyes. You can see also that I'm wearing reasonably high neck clothing because if there was all that bare skin showing, what would happen is the eye would naturally progress downwards instead of looking at my eyes. And I only want people to look at my eyes, not my boobs. So, that's why it's there. I'm looking at the camera and I'm smiling with my teeth showing because then we look friendly, But on that article, you'll see people with guitars, you'll see people with sunglasses, you'll see all different because their purpose is different. But if you want to go with the vanilla version, suitable for practically everything, you would go for that. What you also can see, it's only head and shoulders because I don't want them to look at my body, I want them to look at, me. And when it gets shrunk into a small square, if there's a whole body in there, you can't see the face at all. So that's not so helpful. Now, believe it or not, it took 77 photographs to get that one photo, right? So, you know, I'm not a model by any stretch of the imagination, and the photographer can only do so much in Photoshop. It's not being photoshopped. I think he did do something with the colouring so it doesn't look like I've got so many wrinkles, but anyway, it's a straight photo, but it was taken by a professional photographer. And it was only taken in January this year. And I got my hair done by the hairdresser that day, and I hate it, but anyway, it's the photo I got taken, and that's what I'm using.
Thank you.
Next question. Yes, Rick.
So a lot of people who are looking for work use the term in their header, now looking for opportunities.
Yep,
And there's been a lot of talk lately that that's not a good thing to do.
I agree.
What would you suggest they would do instead?
Absolutely focus on keywords, because that's going to be the most important search location. If you want to say that you're looking for work, you can put that further down in your summary. So you can still put your keywords in here because that's what you want to be known for. But as you can see on my LinkedIn profile, the three things that people look at are your photo, and they're going to spend 20% of the time looking at the photo, even more if it's a bad photo, so that's a bad one. They're going to look at your headline, and they're going to look at your summary. So if you do nothing else from today, but you update those three things, it's going to help you. So what I've chosen to do, because if you look at how long my LinkedIn profile is, it goes on and on and on and on and on, because I want to come up in search results. But what my summary says is it includes my post nominals. So I've got a Bachelor of Business, I'm a member of the Australian Institute of Management, the Australian Human Resources Institute, I'm an associate member of the CDAA, and member of the Australian Society of Authors and the Melbourne Press Club. So this is what I do. I consult, I present, I publish, and that's how much I charge, right? So you get to know immediately, as soon as you look at my profile, how I can help you. So that's my purpose. But if you don't want to pay me, that's fine. I've got heaps of free information online, so go there. So as a freelancer, I don't want you ringing me up and asking me 10 questions on the phone and wasting half an hour of my time. You know, just go to the free stuff if you want the free stuff. That's perfectly okay. So this is my content strategy. And then I've included my contact details, and then I've said why I love freelancing and consulting. And because I do a lot of speaking, I've even put my brief bio in there, so people don't have to ask me for my biography. But what I could say is, you know, in this section, is that I'm currently interested in roles in, or I specialise in, or something like that, so that it makes it really, really clear to anybody who's looking at my profile that that's the type of work that I'm after. But I would never put it in the headline, because the headline is too important for your keywords. You're going to need to have them in there first. And as you can see, I've also included a website link, which on a mobile device would be clickable. So that's what I've put in there. If you had a profile on another website that was really important, perhaps you could put the link to that on there as well. You would also put that information in your contact info. This is a box that a lot of people forget to fill in. Definitely have a Skype account, because a lot of interviews, even though you're working in Adelaide, they'll want to interview you from Sydney or something. Put your mobile number in. And you can see here I've got 3 websites. So I really encourage you to choose other and then write the name of the website and put the URL in there. Now, if you're a professional member or even a student member of a professional association, you can link to those associations. So the algorithms will say, if you're a member of this association, you must be interested in this industry. So you can put it in there. So when I was doing my daughter's LinkedIn profile, she wants to be a vet, and so we looked up the Australian Veterinary Association website, and it turns out as a student she could be a member for free. So obviously we signed her up and then put the link to the AVA in her websites section. So before you leave university, if you're in final year, join as a student member, because you know a student membership of the Australian Human Resources Institute is $33. A professional member is $300 and something. So please, I really, really encourage you to become a member of an association before you leave uni, and whilst you're at uni. And whilst you're at uni, go to their events, you know, particularly their networking ones and their young professionals events and all that sort of stuff. And then what you can also do is you can put your post nominals in your summary, But also, further down on your LinkedIn profile, you can list it as a certification. So you might think that if I'm an electrician, that's the only time I can be a certification. But as a member of something, you can also put it in as a certification, and then the nice logo of that professional body then appears on your profile. And it just gives you so much more credibility than the average student who doesn't bother becoming a member of the professional association. Now, you might say, well, everybody says that association is crap. Well, who cares? It's still the professional association for that industry. And whilst the people within the industry may think it's a crap association, a lot of other people won't know whether it's crap or not. But the fact that you're a member indicates that you're serious about your professional career. And so I've even put things, and I borrowed this idea of someone else, my Working with Children check, my National Police certificate. If you've got the responsible serving of alcohol or gaming licence, whatever it is you need, you can even put those in there. And then you've filled out another section of LinkedIn, and the more sections you've filled out, it's classified as more complete and more likely to come up again in search results. So I really encourage you to put your memberships in there under certifications, but you'll see that I've also got them in my memberships. So my voluntary work, please put all your voluntary work in. Organisations I support, I mentioned it there. And memberships, that's somewhere here.
It's on page 56.
Yeah, page 56, organisations, there you go, there's more. So, look, there's heaps of places you can repeat the same information, and it obviously looks more complete. The other thing I'd like to show you is my University of South Australia degree. So what I've done, particularly as I'm based in Melbourne, and nobody's heard of UniSA over there, I've described the University of South Australia briefly, and then I've listed all the subjects that I did as part of my degree. So it gives people an understanding that I've got like a baby MBA here, because it's all different subjects across different disciplines. But there's a client of mine who's in Sydney, and she's a lawyer. Now, she specialises in governance, risk and compliance. Now, her academic transcript did not include those key words. And I said before, you've got to put your key words in these different sections, and education was one of them. So, say for instance, that was included in my subject, business ethics, or her subject, business ethics. What you could do is you could say subjects and put all those in, and provided you've got enough characters left, you could write topics included, and then you could write governance, risk, compliance. So going back to that first slide I showed you about understanding dumb, stupid databases and algorithms, the computer can't tell that it was only a topic. The computer just found the word in the LinkedIn profile. So that's the way that you can make your profile help you move into different areas. So say for instance you've finished your degree and you've decided you don't want to be an accountant, you want to be, I don't know, a sound engineer. And what the heck has accounting got to do with sound engineering? Well, there's probably lots of words in accounting that are still relatable to sound engineering, So, think about transferable words and pop them in there as well. And then I've got the link and completed by correspondence and the activities and societies I was a part of. So you can definitely do that. And please, stalk me as often as you like. If I see you looking at my profile, I'll be super excited because that meant you doing your homework, So you stalk me as often as you want. I'll be super happy about that. I've also done other little courses, like I did, if somebody wants somebody who can tie knots, I went to this 2-day survival experience. See there, I can tie knots. So, but I just put that on just for a bit of colour and flavour, rather than just be boring and dry. So that's the only reason I put that one in there. So try and put a little bit of your personality into this as well. And also your job. So my first job, straight out of school, was working for Westpac here in Adelaide, which is now Jamie Oliver's restaurant on the corner of King William and North Terrace. So because this was at the beginning of my career, I've put all those different roles over 11 years all in the one spot. Because not many people are interested in what I did pre-1994, but it does still talk to the words I want to be known for today. And then when I went off and had children and did lots of other things, I've grouped all of that time together. But when I started working in individual jobs, what I do for each one is I describe the organisation, the tasks, the achievements and the contact details. So I'd like to encourage you all to do that format for every job you have or you've had. Do it that way, because a lot of decision makers, they'll look at the job title and they won't bother reading that, but they'll go straight to achievements. So you really have to be willing to talk about your achievements. So even if you've just got a job at Woolworths stacking shelves, you know, you can say you were invited to manage the staff rosters, or you were selected to train other employees. They're all achievements, because when you first came in, you were just stacking shelves. But because of your fantastic performance in that job, they then invited you to do other things or selected you for something else or whatever. So you can put them in as achievements. And then the decision maker will say, well, you know, if they did that at Woolworths, then they might be able to do that in this company as well. That's a good employee for us to consider hiring. Now, some other questions. Yep.
Do you have like a public and a private profile? You know, you have a public profile that shows certain information for people who aren't connections compared to those who are connections, or is it all open to everyone?
Yeah, mine's all open to everybody. So by changing that setting to your connections, everybody I'm connected to can see who else I'm connected to. But if I chose only you, and I'm connected to both Matt and Tim, and then Matt said only you, so I would see that he was connected to Tim, but I wouldn't see who else he was connected
What
to.
about all the other fields, like all that detail you have,
Yep.
all your different experiences? You can change the settings
You
in
can.
privacy so that,
Yeah.
if, for example, just the heading show.
Yeah. So what you can do is here, next to your URL, which I suggest you change to your name. So don't leave it as the standard one, customise it. So if you click on that little cog there, you can customise your LinkedIn URL, which means you will much more likely come up in search results. And if your name is not available, just choose a number afterwards. But do not use a number related to your date of birth. I'm an ex-banker. You must never use your date of birth on anything unless you're required by law to use it. Just use the 1st of January, the year you were born. Anyway, just choose a number to add it. But here is where you can set what is visible. Now, I'm happy to have everything visible because I want to come up in search results and I want the person to read my content and then decide whether they want to contact me or not. But if you were very nervous for you're a high security job or something like that, then you could still fill everything in but not have it visible if you didn't want to do that.
Suppose you get to know a person, who is a decision maker in a company, either through LinkedIn or offline, and I would like to contact him through LinkedIn. Is it advisable to add him as a connection as a friend, because that's an option you get in LinkedIn?
Okay, so what I do, if I'm going to add somebody, so what I'll do is I'll just go over here and I'll pick one of these people, right? So say I wanted to reach this lady, okay? So I click on her profile and I read through it. Maybe I'm looking for a speaker for an event, right? And I say, right, well, she's worked in the energy industry and Shell and blah, 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 there's all her details. Okay, so if from that previous screen I pressed connect, or I did it on my mobile phone, it would automatically say, Sue would like to, add you to a network. Nothing personalised. But now that I've visited her profile, I can choose the connect button, and normally, depending on the reason why I'm contacting her, I'll normally say we've done business together. So if I was looking for her to be a guest speaker, it'd probably be in my role with Ari, right? So I'll pick that job. And then I'll say, hi Letitia, I found your details on LinkedIn. We've got an upcoming event on energy, HR in the energy sector. Can I make a time to call you? And then send off the invitation. Because if I personalise it, there's a much greater chance that she will respond in the affirmative. But usually what I prefer to do, because normally when I'm organising a guest speaker, it's all at the last minute and I need to do something straight away. So normally what I do is I use LinkedIn to find her, but then I work out, well, she's the HR manager of corporate functions at Viva Energy Australia. So I look up the phone number for Viva Energy Australia and I put on my most efficient office voice I say, hi, my name's Sue Ellson, can I speak to Letitia Otto, please? You know, oh, how do you know her? Oh, well, I found your details on LinkedIn and, you know, I'm going to speak to her on about her speaking at an upcoming event, and then you can explain it. So I tend to prefer to use LinkedIn as a research tool to find the person and then contact them directly. So you can do that Connect one, where you can ring them. Or what you can also do is look through all of this and see if she's actually included her contact details. And it turns out she hasn't. But what I can also see is she knows this lady that I also know. And, you know, I could even say when I got on the phone, we know Sharon Gowns, you know, in common. So that might help me get through to the gatekeeper. If she's very senior, somebody else might answer the phone on her behalf. And what I would say is, look, can I just get a message through to her and let them pass it on? So I wouldn't just get angry that I can't speak to her directly. I just ask them to pass on the message. But yeah, I prefer to use LinkedIn as a research tool and then contact the person directly. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. There's a couple of things I'll quickly show you then, just to fill in the last few minutes. About 9 minutes. Okay, so on my profile, you'll see I've filled in all the sections. Normally what you'll see on your profile is there'll be sections there, and then it will say view more, and then there's other sections that you have to fill in. So you have to try and fill in as many of those boxes as possible. The only box I do not suggest you fill in is the personal details one, because what it says in there is your date of birth. As I said, don't put that on anything, and also your marital status, which is not relevant in terms of your ability to do the job. However, there was one guy I worked with and he was single and he wanted to work overseas. So if you're in that category, you know, sometimes mentioning the fact that you're single could be helpful. So again, always related to your purpose. But what I wanted to show you is the posts that I've written. So perhaps if we look at that professional membership in LinkedIn article, you can see that I've got an image there which has got a word on it, and I've put professional membership LinkedIn in the title of my article. I've written by me and I've linked to my website. That's all in italics, so that's markup language. And then as you go through, you can see that I link to some high priority websites, and then I've got a little quote, then I've got a numbered heading in a different format, then I'm linking to more high authority websites, and then I've got another section, another little quote, and as you go down you'll see I've got a video, and further more quotes, and then I've got a numbered list, and then I do this. So I write first published then, last updated it then, and then I tell people what to do. If this article is helpful, please like it, share it, add a link, provide a link in your newsletter, ask for information, bookmark the page, and then I've got more contact details, see my profile, see my books, etc. And then as you can see, anybody who's written a comment, I respond. So all of the people who've written something, I respond to that as soon as I get the notification. And I normally get the notifications up here. And I respond to it from there. So you're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. That will increase your search results by 9,000 people, which will help you definitely come up in more search results. And it might enable you to get some notifications of some of the content that I share. Obviously I shared that I was going to be here today, so that was something. So you can look at someone's profile, and just as you can save it to PDF, you can also look and see what recent activity I've done. So I've commented on that, commented on a group discussion, you know, I've made a comment there, and so on. That can also tell you how active someone is on LinkedIn. You can do that as well. So, last chance for questions before I draw the door prize. Any more questions? I can stay here for a few minutes after, but I am catching the 6:45 from the Adelaide Airport off to Melbourne again. So, thank you again for your participation. Has the bowl gone completely around the room? Where is it now? Everybody's put their details in. All right, thank you, Tim. we'll do the shuffle. Would you like to pick the winning person? Oh, the book is also available in the NESA library, and you can also go to 120ways.com and get the digital version for $9.99. Melissa Swinmore. Yeah, thank you. Congratulations to Melissa. Before we wrap up, is there anybody willing to tell me one thing they've learned from today that they will take action on?
Everything,
Everything. Oh. Top of the class.
I guess.
Yes? What are you going to do from today?
Say thanks.
Say thank you. Thank you very much. Very good. I'm impressed. Anything else?
New photo.
New photo? Good. Okay. Well, it's only a version, so don't worry about the previous one. And it's good to do that before you get lots of views. So well done. Alrighty. Well, I think we might let you all have an early night. And again, thank you for coming. Please take action. That means that, you know, the time you spent today will be worthwhile. And thanks again to Matt for hosting me. Thank you.